If they left and you've been lying awake trying to figure out what you did wrong, I need you to hear this before you send one more text, before you check their page one more time, before you convince yourself that if you just try a little harder, they'll come back. You keep replaying the last conversation. You keep asking God why he let this happen. You keep wondering if you were too much or not enough, or if you missed some sign you should have caught. You've probably prayed for them by name more times this month than you've prayed for yourself. Here's what nobody is telling you. God didn't abandon you when they left. He removed you from a counterfeit. That's not a cruel thing to say to you right now. It's the most protective thing anyone could say to you, because a counterfeit doesn't look fake while you're holding it. It looks real. It feels real. It can even feel like love. But a counterfeit was never going to hold the weight of what you actually need. And God knew that before you did. Think about how gold is tested. You don't find out something is fake by looking at it. You find out by putting it through fire. Pain doesn't create the counterfeit. Pain reveals it. If it couldn't survive the fire, it was never going to survive the life you're actually called to live. There's a reason Scripture compares God's work to a gardener caring for a vine. Pruning looks painful from the perspective of the branch. It doesn't understand why something that once gave it comfort is suddenly gone. It only feels the cut. But the gardener sees what the branch cannot. He knows that without removing what no longer serves its purpose, healthy growth becomes impossible. Sometimes what feels like loss is actually preparation. Maybe you've been calling it heartbreak, while heaven has been calling it protection. That's difficult to accept because our hearts naturally focus on what we've lost instead of what we've been spared from. We imagine the future we hoped for. We replay the memories that made us smile. We forget the moments when something felt off, when peace disappeared, when you constantly felt anxious, confused, or emotionally exhausted. We remember the highlights but ignore the warning signs. God sees the whole story, not just the chapter you're living through. There are conversations you never heard, decisions made behind your back that you know nothing about, doors that would have led you into greater pain if they had remained open. We often ask God to explain himself, but many of his greatest acts of love happen quietly, without immediate explanation. Only later do we look back and realize what he was protecting us from. Romans 8:28 reminds us that God works all things together for the good of those who love him, who have been called according to his purpose. Notice it doesn't say all things feel good. It says God works through them for good. There's a difference. Sometimes the greatest evidence of God's love isn't what he gives you. It's what he refuses to let you keep. Think about Joseph in the Bible. He was betrayed by his own brothers, sold into slavery, falsely accused and forgotten in prison. At every stage, it probably looked like God had abandoned him. But years later, Joseph could finally see what he couldn't understand in the middle of the pain. What others intended for evil, God used to position him exactly where he needed to be. Your story may not look like Joseph's, but the principle is the same. God's perspective reaches far beyond your present disappointment. Maybe you've been asking, why did they leave? Perhaps a better question is, what was God protecting me from? Not every closed door is rejection. Sometimes it's redirection. Not every goodbye is a punishment. Sometimes it's mercy wearing unfamiliar clothes. The hardest part is the waiting that follows. After someone leaves, there's often silence, and silence makes us uncomfortable. We want immediate answers. We want instant healing. We want another person to fill the empty space before we've even understood why it's there. But God often does his deepest work in seasons that feel quiet. Before David became king, there were years of waiting. Before Moses led Israel, there were decades in the wilderness. Before Jesus began his public ministry, there were years of preparation that Scripture barely describes. Waiting has never been wasted when God is the one writing the story. Perhaps this season isn't about finding someone else. Perhaps it's about becoming someone stronger, someone who doesn't confuse attention with love, someone who doesn't mistake inconsistency for mystery, someone who values peace more than emotional chaos, someone who understands that love should draw you closer to God, not further away from him. It's easy to believe that if someone comes back, everything will finally make sense. But sometimes the miracle isn't reconciliation. Sometimes the miracle is reaching a day where you no longer need the apology you thought you couldn't live without. Healing often arrives quietly. One morning, you'll wake up and realize you didn't check your phone first. You'll notice their name without your heart racing. You'll hear a song that once reminded you of them, and instead of pain, you'll simply remember. That's how God restores people, not always all at once, but faithfully, one small step at a time. Isaiah 43:19 says, "See, I am doing a new thing. Now it springs up. Do you not perceive it?" Sometimes we're so focused on the door that closed that we completely miss the new path God is already opening. If you're constantly looking backward, you'll struggle to recognize what's ahead. And maybe that's exactly where you are today. You're asking God to reopen a chapter He has already finished writing. You're standing outside a door He already locked for your protection. You're praying for something He lovingly removed because He knew it would eventually break you. Trust doesn't mean pretending the pain isn't real. Trust means believing God remains good even when the answers haven't arrived yet. It means choosing faith over fear, even when your emotions tell you otherwise. It means believing that God's plans for your life are bigger than one relationship, one friendship, one opportunity, or one season of loss. One day you'll understand why certain people couldn't go where God was taking you. One day you'll thank Him for prayers He didn't answer. One day you'll see that what felt like the end was actually the beginning of something far greater than you imagined. Until that day comes, keep walking, keep praying, keep growing. Don't chase people God has already released from your life. Don't build your future around someone God never intended to stay. Instead, let Him shape your heart into someone ready to receive what is genuine, lasting, and aligned with His purpose. Because you cannot hold the real thing with hands that refuse to release the counterfeit. And when God's timing brings the right people, the right opportunities, and the right season into your life, you'll realize that nothing He removed could ever compare to what He was preparing. So here's what I want you to do today, not tomorrow, not when you finally feel ready. Today, write down one sentence that begins with these words: I am finally free to receive. Finish it honestly. Not with what sounds spiritual, not with what someone else expects you to say. Write what your heart genuinely longs for. Maybe it's peace, maybe it's healing, maybe it's courage, maybe it's purpose, maybe it's a relationship built on honesty, trust, and God's presence. Then read those words out loud. Let that become your prayer tonight instead of asking God to bring back someone He may have removed for your protection. Because sometimes the greatest answer to prayer isn't getting back what you lost. It's finally becoming grateful for what God refused to let you keep. If this message spoke to you, share it with someone who needs this reminder today. And tell me in the comments, who are you still praying will come back, even though deep down, some part of you already knows why they left?